Good evening, CLC. I'm Naomi Feta. Thank you so much for joining me here this evening. So, today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the rest of God. It's something that repeatedly over the years I'm always coming back to, maybe because I definitely have that personality of wanting to get things done and move right along. And yet there is this aspect of rest in God. And what exactly does that look like? So there is a passage in Hebrews 4 that much of the passage refers back to the Old Testament, to the Israelites. But it is also a passage for us today. So I'm just going to start reading from verse 1. It says, God's promise of entering his rest still stands. So we ought to tremble with fear of that some of you might fail to experience it. For this good news that God has prepared this rest has also been announced to us, just as it was to them. But it did them no good because they didn't share the faith of those who listened to God. And just as I start reading that, and it says the promise of entering his rest still stands. And, there is this element of our life in Christ that I think is not explainable in the natural. And what if rest is something that our spirit, our spiritual soul, our inner man experiences that might not be something that we can express in the physical. And to think about rest, like I think for myself, a freedom from striving, a place of knowing and trusting that God is in control, that he is holding things together, that I'm not trying everything in my self effort. And how do we enter this rest? Because it's something that he has put forward and promised. So when we or when I reflect back on a time before there was sin, right? We had Adam and Eve, and they were built for this dependent relationship with God. And so often we think, oh, Adam and Eve, okay, so we know this story, but recognizing how deeply it impacts our entire life. And we were built for dependence on God, to come to him, to depend, to have a trust in him. And so when we're able to trust him and believe that he's in control, there can come a rest for our soul. And so that's like, as we begin to learn again that dependence that Adam and Eve originally had at the beginning of creation, there's a rest for the soul. And so much of that is this freedom from feeling like we hold our world and our circumstances in our control. And not that we don't walk forward in wisdom, but that there's just a knowing, a deep-seated knowing that is peaceful and it's restful and it's trusting that God will do what he says he will do in our lives. And when we're trying to work to make things happen, sometimes we just need to let go and let him. And all through the Old Testament and New, we see stories of this. I mean, in the New Testament, we have the big miracles of feeding the 5,000. And think about the maybe anxiety or the fear that the disciples may have had over how they were going to feed this huge crowd of people. And yet there was rest found when, rather than feeling like they had to control the situation, that they had to make it happen, God just asked, go bring the food that you have to me, the 5 loaves, 2 fishes. and he multiplied it. He blessed it and multiplied it. And their work was to just bring it to him and let him do the work. And so when I think of this rest of God, so much of it has to do with that, and how often I find that I'm trying to run ahead and do something, and I have to come back repeatedly and say, no, I feel that I'm striving within my own self, and I'm coming to you, Lord, and I'm going to trust that you're going to give me rest, because there's this promise that there's rest for my soul, that you have created this rest for me. So I don't know what you're going through today, what things you feel like you have to control, but remember that he has promised rest, and it's an invitation. He's saying, come to me, find rest for your soul. So God bless you, and look forward to seeing you in church on Sunday. Be sure to check us out in person at 20 West Main Street in Catskill, meeting at 10:30 on Sunday mornings. We'd love to see you there.